Sakari, how you doing? Thanks for joining me this morning. I caught you late notice, but I appreciate you coming on.
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm really happy to be back here.
So Europe is arming, right? They're getting prepared for war. Is that a realistic threat? What do you think?
There is a real contradiction between the rhetorics and realities in Europe. On the one hand, there seems to be a very high political ambitions among the EU leaders, EU and NATO leaders. But on the other hand, like military realities are very low. Many European armies have been depleted by the war in Ukraine because they have given so much ammunition and weapons to armed forces of Ukraine. So there is this contradiction is very clear.
What do you see happening? I mean, Germany's talking about spending, I don't even know the amount now. France is talking about arming. The UK and Germany and France are talking about building new long-range cruise missiles together, fighter jets. What do you see the future of the rearmament? Will they have the money to pay for this?
It will be very difficult because already now in many European countries we have seen Spain opposing the new spending goal of the NATO of 5% of GDP, and we have seen the rise of peace opposition among the Social Democrats in Germany. They would like to resume the peace talks with Russia instead of rising the tensions. But the transatlantic elites in Europe are willing to do anything to save their Euro-Atlantic system because they know that the Euro-Atlantic institutions like the NATO and the European Union can exist only when the Euro-Atlantic system prevails. And because they know that one of the last tools to preserve this unity between the United States and European countries is the Russophobia and rising the image of so-called Russian threat.
What about, I believe your home country is Finland. I mean, they become part of NATO. What do you see happening in some of the Baltic countries? Are they on board with this rearmament?
Yes, there is a lot of hysteria, panic, even panic in Finland and the Baltic countries because our mainstream media is totally full of stories about Russian threat. But it's a little bit funny because on the one hand, they say that Russia can attack on the following day, but on the other hand, they paint a picture that Russia can also collapse. So there is only one of these stories can be true, but that's the mainstream media's reality in our countries in the Baltic Sea region.
What is the European view of what's happening in the Ukraine conflict? I mean, are they getting the truth that the military situation is not good for Ukraine? Or are they being told just more money and more weapons will solve the problem?
The mainstream media and high-level politicians are not willing to admit that the military situation of Ukraine is very, very difficult because the willingness of citizens to continue to donate financial assistance and military assistance depends on the prospects of winning the conflict. But yes.
Okay. What about Ursula von der Leyen? Do you see, I mean, you were, I believe, in the European Parliament. Am I correct? Or
I used to work in the European Parliament before.
Yes. Yes. What do you see happening with Ursula? She passed the vote of no confidence, correct? Ursula von der Leyen.
Yes, he no confidence because political forces which favor the EU integration and creation of the EU federation are very firmly supporting him, and unfortunately there are not the political forces opposing him are not too strong at the moment in the EU institutions.
Okay. What about the Central European states, Hungary, Slovakia, Czech Republic? Are they going to, or Poland, are they going to support this rearmament, or is the hysteria there as well, or not?
It seems that even Hungary, which has been very reluctant to finance Ukraine and provide Ukraine with weapons, is ready to take part to the rearmament. I think that's a tactical move from the part of Hungarian government. But from the other side, there is a camp of rebellions inside the EU and NATO, which are basically Hungary and Slovakia, and they don't want to go on with the war in Ukraine because they know that if this goes on further and further, it would eventually mean the Third World War, a war between EU and NATO on the one hand, and on the other hand, Russia. And the Euro-Atlantic institutions are very afraid of expansion of this camp of rebellions. That's why the first round of presidential elections in Romania was cancelled last December. EU leaders are very worried about this camp of rebellions to expand to the Balkans and East Europe, especially to Romania, Bulgaria, Greece. We can see from the opinion polls that the support, only 28% of Greeks see NATO in a positive light. But what it comes to accepting Ukraine as a NATO member, even Polish, even though Poland has been a very strong supporter of Euro-Atlantic cooperation, 42% of Poles oppose admitting Ukraine as part of the NATO.
So what do you see happening? Do you see the EU breaking apart? I mean, what do you see happening on the ground with the European Union?
So it's very clear for the EU leaders that they understand that if they lose their war in Ukraine, that will be the end of the EU. Because I explained this like in case of loss for the EU in war in Ukraine, the centrifugal forces in the EU are being liberated, and many countries, especially in the southeast and East Europe, like Hungary, Slovakia, Greece, Bulgaria, Romania, they are looking for cooperation partners from outside of the centers of Europe, outside of Paris, Berlin, Brussels. And that would create a space for multipolar world. They would balance their interest not only towards EU and North America, but also towards China, Turkey, India, Russia, like Hungary and Slovakia are already doing at the moment.
Your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
This is a special report.
Knowing how to invest your money is harder than ever before. Dealing with stock market volatility, record debt, and terrorist attacks requires new thinking. At U.S. Asset Management, we can help you see the world more clearly so that you can move beyond the chaos and invest with confidence. Call us, visit us online, or drop by our office. U.S. Asset Management, helping you make better decisions with your money.
So I guess that's the reason for a lot of the censorship in the EU and trying to like stop this awakening or understanding from happening. Is that going to get worse? You know, they're arresting people in their homes for Facebook posts, etc. Is that going to continue?
Unfortunately, that's very bad situation at the moment when they are canceling elections, like in Romania.
Mm-hmm.
How they are legal procedures going against representatives of opposition in France, like against Marine Le Pen, against putting. There is a threat of the main opposition party, which according to certain polls is the most popular party in Germany. It's under threat of being banned. So we can't anymore speak about a real democracy inside the European Union, or let alone a democracy at all. And in France, there are many very negative phenomena going on.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I see the situation as very negative at the moment.
Well, it's kind of a powder keg. What you mentioned Romania. This is obviously a very unique situation. It's on the Black Sea, very strategic for NATO. Uh, but the government, the elections have been canceled. It's completely controlled by the globalist forces. What do you see happening in Romania?
Yeah, it's obvious that the political tensions are very high there, and people see that their main candidate of the opposition was taken out of the competition just because his political views were wrong. So his main sin was that he was opposing the biggest NATO military base in Europe, which could have could be used in the war in Ukraine. Would the war expand further on? If the war would become the war between not only Ukraine and Russia, but the war between Russia and EU.
Yes, that's obviously part of that. Is they want that second front opened. Last question: immigration. What do are Europeans waking up to the dangers of this essentially suicide, where they're replacing their own populations, like in the Baltic states or Nordic states?
Yeah, yes, we can see all over all over Europe that parties critical towards migration are rising in support, but people start to be very they start to be not very satisfied, because they see many political figures which have a rise in their career based on criticism towards migration, like Giorgia Meloni, the Prime Minister of Italy. But more and more, Giorgia Meloni hasn't been able to counter the massive influx of illegal migrants to Italy, and on the contrary, she's been declaring, she's been given some very strange comments about the need for Italy to welcome more migrants. And in Italy, political tensions are also rising, because Giorgia Meloni's party's members in the European Parliament didn't want to vote for sacking of Ursula von der Leyen as the head of the European Commission in the vote of the European Parliament this week.
Yes. Well, thank you. Is there anything else you want people to know, and where can people follow your analysis?
I would say that the economic situation in France is very negative at the moment, and it could be a sign of potential economic crisis in the Eurozone. The budget deficit in France is the biggest in the whole Eurozone, in the whole European Union at the moment, which could mean more political instability in the whole Europe. The European Union's economy has been on a knife's edge from 2018, and it has been saved only because of artificial economic stimulus and quantitative easing, and little by little, it's the situation is becoming unbearable.
Very interesting. Where can people follow you, Sakari?
Yeah, my name is Sakari Linden, and I'm present on social media X, for example.
Okay. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you coming on short notice. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay.